Welcome to the Healist Podcast, where we inspire and guide healers through business expansion. We give voice to incredibly abundant healers to share their stories. We dive into the quantum field to unlock the energies of conscious creation. We also develop digital tools to help you grow, which you can find on healist.com. I'm your host, Yuli, and I'm grateful you chose to join this space. Now let's go deep. Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Healist Podcast. I'm so excited to have with us today Phoebe Leona. She is a TEDx speaker and a podcast host of The Space in Between. She's the author of Dear Radiant One, an emotional recovery story and transformational guide to embody the dance of life, which was recently nominated Best Spiritual Memoir of All Times. She is a teacher and embodiment guide, and she is the founder of the Nomad Collective, a destination for retreat leaders, retreat properties, and retreat seekers. And I just love the subject of retreats, and I cannot wait to dive deep with Phoebe because she is the expert on retreats. I mean, she helps retreat leaders organize them. So she must know everything about this business. And as you guys know, I love to set intentions for our episodes. And my intention today is really shed light on this business side of retreats, right? Because I personally, there's no practitioner that I talk to that doesn't want to take people on a retreat. It's such an incredible opportunity to really, really take people to a deeper place with your practice, your teachings. And so many practitioners are intimidated by retreats or feel like they don't know how to run them, or they are afraid of the financial risks sometimes involved in them. There's so many fears that somehow associated with this beautiful experience that we have the potential to create with our clients. And I really hope to not just shed light on some of those aspects that might be unknown, but also create more comfort and ease and inspire people to experiment with retreats and include it in their offerings. So thank you, Phoebe, for being here with us and sharing your wisdom. And if you would like to set intention as well, please do so.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Yuli, for inviting me here. And listening to you, I'm going to bring in the intention that is actually my 2 words for the year, but I feel like they're very relevant for our conversation today, and that's ease and confidence.
Love that. Yes. All right. So where should we begin? It's just, I have so many questions.
Yeah, let's just dive in.
Let's just tackle maybe some of the more, before we even go to the details of retreats. Who do you see kind of the practitioners that most maybe suited for retreats? Is it for everyone? Is there any modalities that, suit better the retreat experience? And what do you see kind of like happening overall in this space right now that we're way post-pandemic, right? Hopefully never have to go through that experience again. People are traveling, people are seeking, the awakening is happening. So people are seeking those new experiences. We all know they need them really, really badly, right? They need to be sometimes in that retreat environment to really experience the full transformation. What do you see is happening in the space? Are there any modalities or any areas that you think are really working well right now, really in demand, really fitting this experience?
That's a good question. Thank you. So I do see I see trends, and they're mostly co-creative. A lot of people are coming with different modalities and they want to work together. But before I kind of explain that a little bit more, I'd love to just share a little bit of the journey, because what you were speaking into in the introduction of the fears that come up and the doubts that come up in terms of your, the finances that you're responsible for and putting the deposit down and everything else. And oh my goodness, are people going to come? And all the other things that come along with that, not just the financial responsibilities, but then also you showing up as a leader. I think I was somewhat fortunate enough that I didn't have those. I just took a leap because I was in this very crazy, chaotic part of my life where I needed to make a huge change. There are a lot of things that changed in my own personal life. I had been already teaching yoga. That was my modality at the time for about 10 years. And because so much changed in my personal life that I needed to make this change. And what do I actually get to ask the question, what do I want? And what do I want to create? So the two words that came through was teaching and travel. So that's where Nomad came from, was to offer these transformational experiences for other people who are going through their own chaotic times and their own transition through a loss of a loved one, a divorce, making that big leap in their career path. And that's what motivated me. I didn't even let the fears of, are people going to show up? And am I going to make any money? I was just like, I just need to do this. So I share that because sometimes we do just have to take that leap of faith and trust. But at the same time, there is to also know that you're going to learn probably with a lot more bumps in the road than if you took that time. But either way, there's going to be some obstacles that come up. And that's really what I love to do, is offer retreat leaders this opportunity to have maybe less bumps in the road, because I can teach them what I've learned along the way. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I've also learned a lot of great lessons from those mistakes. And that's what I love to do, is empower other leaders. So if they're sitting there right now looking at the trends and saying, oh, I really want to do this, and I have this modality, to know that, we've been here before, and we can take you even further with where you want to go with your vision of holding this. And so what I've been noticing since the pandemic was there are a couple of things that I've been noticing. Some people are just ready to travel again. And like you said, they're just ready for this awakening that's happening right now. But there's still a lot of people that are scared. There are a lot of people that are kind of afraid to press that, buy your ticket because they're still waiting for the next, shoe to drop. And so what I've been noticing is that there's a lot of people who are awakening, and these are our retreat leaders, and they are feeling like, I need to give back. I need to bring people into community. I need to take them on deeper experiences. But there's some people that they want to take along for the ride, but they haven't quite gotten there yet. And what I was just sharing in my own podcast today is, when you're in this place of leadership, we can't take it personally if they're not ready yet. And so it's really being grounded and kind of going through your own shamanic journey of, when people say, oh, I can't come on your retreat yet, to not let those doubts get in the way of it, and to be really grounded and to really trust that what you have to give, whether it is that modality or just some wisdom that you need to give these people in this experience, that the right people will show up at the right time. And so there are lots of trends out there, but I really focus on, like, what is your gift, and not to follow the trends, but to really be grounded in who you are, what your gift is, and why. Why do you feel right now that you need to create this experience for people? And when they can really dig into that why, that's when they really magnetize the people, instead of like, okay, I see these other people doing breath work or sound healing. It's like, well, what is your modality? What is your unique role and gift for this world? So that's one piece of advice I would just love to share. And then the other one is that I have been noticing a lot of people feeling, I think because we are moving into this age of Aquarius where there's more collaborative energy, and we really want to feel like we're not working in a silo anymore, and release that competitive nature. So we want to come together and work more in a co-creative way. But I also do see there's a little bit of fear there too, of not taking the responsibility fully as a like leading their own retreat on their own. So they feel like, oh, well, what if I invite other people to collaborate? And I would just say to those people, when they want to lean into that trend of co-creating and bringing other modalities and people to offer those modalities, and is to just make sure you know your why. Are you doing this truly from a place of wanting to collaborate with each other, or is it to hide a little bit, right, as a leader? Because I see that happening. And then what happens is there's not a lot of communication, clear communication, and the roles that each person is playing, and how many people are responsible for bringing other people. And then it gets a little tricky there. So that's something that I've been kind of guiding my people, my leaders that I'm helping right now get clear on what's their why, and in terms of what they're offering and why they're doing what they're doing.
That's incredible, and a really insightful point about collaborations, because I'm with you. I see so many beautiful collaborations happening in the space, and it's always interesting to kind of see behind the scenes, how does it work, right? Because if I was a practitioner today, and even if I practice maybe a couple of different modalities, I think there's a tremendous value to collaborate with some complementary practitioners that can add something. And even as a consumer, right? When I think about my own retreats that I've gone to, a lot of them were with multiple teachers, because I don't know if it's just my personality, but I'm kind of attracted to that idea. Oh, I can kind of like get a little bit of, all of their teachings, and I know it's going to combine it to a beautiful story, and they'll kind of probably complement each other, right? So I think there's just so many benefits for collaboration. Is there something else that you can share that people can kind of keep in mind as they're potentially thinking even about collaborating with somebody? Yeah. What do you see kind of I don't want to use the terms like keys to success, right? What are the traits of the successful collaboration? But anything that you've seen that really works well usually, and maybe things to avoid potentially?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important that we do still have this collaborative energy, but to also know who is in charge. And I don't mean this in a hierarchy way of just who's going to take the lead. Because I think sometimes if we come in that we're all working equally together, like I said before, the roles, if they're not really clear, we might have a lot of different threads of thought and ideas, and they might not become cohesive. So if there's someone, and this might not even be necessarily one of the facilitators, maybe it's someone who can see a bird's eye view of, and that's kind of what I do with my retreat leaders or guides, what I call them, is that I can kind of see the bird's eye view and say, okay, there's a little gap here on whether that is the itinerary or the modality that's and the experience that people need to have at that point, so that I can kind of help them see what they don't see, because they're coming with what they already know, but they might not know what they don't already know that this other person's bringing in. And if we have someone who's a little bit there to steer the ship, right, to keep it cohesive, to know everybody's gifts and how we can make each person shine, so that the people who are participating can really get the full experience of each modality, each person, and the gift that they have to give. I see that because that will help us release the egos. Yeah. So, we're still, even though we're healers and teachers, we still have egos along, and we can get a little bit trapped up. So when I work with, like, I'm leading 2 retreats coming in the winter, and we're co-leading. And there's one that I feel like, okay, I'm the one who's taking the lead and kind of facilitating the itinerary. But then there's another one where I feel like it's hers, like this is her vision. And I have to lean back and listen to what does she really want to create for her people. And I have to let that ego go, even though I'm like, oh, I've been doing retreats for 10 years, right? It's not that I'm saying, I just let that go. And I say, how can I support her in that moment? Right. And how can I support her vision? And that feels a lot more energetically like it can flow, rather than letting that ego get in the way and feel like this is mine and this is what I bring. And that's sometimes what I see too, is people just come in and kind of just bring whatever they need to bring. And then they're not really involved in the whole process. And so it's really important to be a part of the entire process. Come and support the other facilitators that are in that retreat and be a part of that transformation that the participants are taking a part of.
Yeah, it's just such a beautiful message. And, it's something that I think all of us kind of battling every day, like, right? Our egos versus our mission. If I have to
Mhm.
summarize it, it's something that
Yeah.
comes up for me a lot too. And I have to always like check with myself. And I think a lot of practitioners too, I can imagine the situation when you come in and you might be bringing your clients that you've really nurtured those relationships for like the past 10 years. And, what happens if you're just coming in as co-leader or someone who's not the leader, but just a guest teacher in the retreat, but it ended up being most of your clients that you bring to the table, and like putting that aside and just have the client interests in mind, first of all, right? Because
Yeah.
this is all for them. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully people are not doing retreats just to brag to their followers or
Mhm.
whatever that,
Yeah.
I'm leading, I'm traveling to Bali or whatever it is. And to be able to post beautiful pictures. I mean, it's all about the client at the end of the day
Mhm.
and their journey. And I think it's easy to overlook that when you step into leadership role and you have those responsibilities and you go into like division of responsibilities and creating those partnerships, right? Just remember that this is all about the client journey and we're here to serve them.
Yeah. A couple of threads of thought that came through was a message that I just shared in my community is we can't take it personally. We have to get out of our own way to go with the dialogue about the ego, right? We can't take it personally if the people aren't showing up at that time, or there is a bit of a conflict and somebody wants to do something. If you're in that co-creative space and that, your idea doesn't get executed, we can't take it personally because we really have to be in alignment with our mission. What is our overall? And I think it's really important, like what you said beautifully here at the beginning of the episode was, what's our intention? What's our intention to enter into together? And when you go into those co-creative experiences, let's have a co-creative mission together, intention together, so that we can always use that as our heartbeat. That's our purpose now. And so when the ego stuff does get involved and we start to take things personally, we can go back to that heartbeat of making sure that we are focused on the experience that we're offering to that client.
And, since you mentioned your role as someone who helps to bring that bird's eye view
Mm.
and help kind of maintain those relationships and make sure that there's a clear leadership and responsibilities are taken and executed. Can you talk a little bit more about your role and what you've created? Because I think it's just so brilliant. And by the way, I talk about you and your business all the time to
Oh,
practitioners. Like every time someone mentions a retreat, like you need to talk to Phoebe because people always like they start a conversation. Oh, I really want to do this retreat, but
yeah.
there's always so many buts like, oh, I don't have time to look. I don't have time to manage it. I don't have time to look at locations and deal with logistics. And I always say you have to talk to Phoebe. So hopefully many of
Mm.
them come to you. But I think it's just a brilliant business. And I would
Mm.
love to understand a little better. How do you come in? If someone, let's say someone has an idea, if it's just them, or maybe it's a couple of collaborators come to you and say, I want nothing to do with logistics. I just want to come and teach my craft and connect with my clients. Please help me. Where do you
Yeah.
go from there?
Okay. I feel like I've been doing this for 10 years and I find a lot of joy in supporting people now. I feel like I'm shifting into this place where I can be a leader in a sense where I can handle things and take care of the logistics and I can mentor people through the experience because I've been there before. But I get to lean back and I get to really celebrate and support these practitioners, these leaders. They're stepping into this new leadership role and I really get to empower them. And that's where I feel like that's where my career path is at this point. Right. So that brings me a lot of joy. And so I do this in a lot of ways. One is that I can be that. I can just be a mentor. I can guide them through it and help them with more of the blocks that come up, right? The mental blocks, the emotional blocks, the I want to buts. I can just mentor them through that process. But if they do truly get to that point, like you said, I want to do this, but I don't want to handle the logistics. Well, my business is set up as a travel agency. So we have various liabilities. Yeah, it's still as a practitioner, you need your general liability to cover you as a practitioner. But we have all of the other liability insurances that we need to be truly functioning as a retreat, which not a lot of practitioners know about. So because we've been doing this for 10 years, we take care of those kind of things. We handle the registrations. We handle some of the contracts that are going out there, kind of depends on where we meet them in their process. So sometimes they've already signed a contract with a property and they realize they're in over their head. So we might just kind of handle the next steps after that. But if they get us, right at the beginning, then we can say, okay, these are some properties that we already partner with. We highly recommend them because we've had personal experiences with them. And then we can also handle the contract and, help them negotiate things and get the deposit and everything and handle the payments for them. So we really can work with wherever they are in the process and however much they want support. So like I said, it could just be a mentorship where I consult and make sure that they're checking things off the list and making sure that they're not getting in their own way personally. And we can also handle the logistics for them.
About the actual on-site retreat, can you help people also just be there for them and kind of handle those logistics as well?
Yeah, exactly. So we handle all of the preparations. So we walk them through from the idea phase to the facilitation. And so I can be there on site. We can also make sure if it's not me personally, it might be somebody from my team, or I might just encourage them, depending on where they are in their process, to have somebody there as their assistant that they already know, like, and trust and can really lean into that. So it depends on, when I sit with them in that first envisioning session, I say, okay, what is your goal in terms of your financial goal, but also how many people do you want? Where do you want it? Why do you want that? Really dig into their why. And so if they only want, let's say 6 people, they might not need to hire me there, but we can get somebody who is an assistant, one of their students that could potentially be their student. So if they want something a bit bigger and they can afford that in their budget, then I could be hired to come and assist them and just make sure that I'm the one handling if they have towels in their room, if there are onions in their food or not in their food or whatever it is, making sure that the staff on the property is being, taking care of the clients. Yeah.
That's incredible, because I think this is one of the major fears people that I've talked to, at least, just to make sure how they can balance being on a location and holding space for their clients, but also not being drawn into all the little details and logistics. And it is, in the end of the day, it is a travel experience too. And there's things that can come up that require, handling. And who does that if you're right now doing a sound bath and one of your guests needs something urgently or needs attention?
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful service that I'm sure relieves a lot of people.
Yeah. I always share with them that it really is this idea of space holding, that masculine energy where we need to just handle all the logistics. But then we have that divine feminine energy where we're able to create that space for the transformation and go deep. And it's really challenging to do both in that setting. We can do it in a one day workshop or a few hours, but to be with people 24 hours for 7 days potentially, and somewhere on the other side of the world, it takes a lot of energy. And so it's really important too that you're taking care of yourself, that you're setting those boundaries. You're making sure that you're not sharing a room. I've been guilty of this where I shared a room with one of my family members who I love very much, but I was like, oh my gosh, I need my own personal space next time. And I need somebody who can, just have people go to, so that I have a little bit of space too. That's so important. I always make sure that people know that they feel supported as the retreat leader. They need to have that support because they're holding so much. And if they are going through deep transformation with their clients, they're going to feel it too, right? And so if they don't have that, or they don't have the time and space, right? They all have the resources because they are facilitators. But if they don't have the time and space within those that week, right, things will get imbalanced within themselves and in the group too.
No, such a great point. I completely agree and can see the value in that. You touched some of the financial aspects of retreats. One of my favorite topics because I feel like everyone wants to avoid it. So I love talking about it.
Okay, let's
Finance
begin.
and healing. I think there is, one of the other major fears around it outside of just taking care of people, simply put, right? It's taking on the financial risk. And how do you do? And I know every retreat is so different, and people have different levels of. There's the more affordable retreats. There's luxury retreats. There's so much, just like in a travel space, right? You can go about it so many different ways. But just if we had to kind of generalize it a little bit, are there any things you can share that will make it sounds more attainable for people, or any practices or any setups that you've learned through the years, how to, one, minimize the risk of an individual practitioner in this venture, in this retreat venture? And what are the steps that we can offer that will make it still attainable for someone who's not in a position, for example, to put a large deposit right now, but they have a solid community, they have a great interest from their clients, and they want to take that leap of faith, right? They feel confident. How can you help them to get to that place of ease and comfort with and confidence with the financial risks?
So I can talk to this in two different ways. One, just logistically, we can sit there in that first call and say, okay, how much do you have up front that you could potentially put down for deposit? And then we can find a place, because not all of the properties require, 20% of the deposit. Some of them require quite minimal amount. And so we can look at that too, just like logistically, okay, you literally don't have the money to put down. So how can we do this in a way so we can kind of plan it out in that way? But a lot of times what it is those mental blocks, those emotional blocks around money. And just like any aspect of our healing business, right? It's this shamanic journey. All of those shadows come out. And so our own doubts get out. So even if they have, like you just said as an example, you might not have all the money up front, but you have a huge following. Well, you might also have a big block around finances. So even though you might have hundreds of people who are like ready to do it, there's still going to be energetically this block that you've created there. So that's something that I look at too, because a lot of the work I've done outside of this is the somatic work of like, how's your nervous system handling this expansive state that you're entering into as it's stepping into a leader? So we look at that as like, okay, what's a number? That's two questions that I ask are like, what's the number of people that you feel would be fine with your nervous system, right? Because some people are like, I want 30 people and I want to make $30,000. And it's like, okay, is your nervous system okay with that?
I love that question.
Yeah, it's like, because when we go into those places of possibility, it's so exciting. Like, I get to help transform all these lives, right? And I could also make a lot of money. That's exciting, but it's also the unknown too. And so when we go into those expansive states, expansion anxiety physically feel the same in our body because we're entering in that space of the unknown. So if they're not ready for it and they're kind of just saying numbers just because they want to pull them out of a hat and it sounds really good and sexy, it's like, well, are you in your body? Can you feel that? Can you really truly feel that? And I actually had to let go of a client because she came in with these really big ideas. And I just said, I don't feel that you're ready for this yet. Like your nervous system is not ready. And it came out in ways where she was questioning and doubting me through every step that I was taking. I was like, you have to trust me and you have to trust yourself. And if you don't, then there's going to be lots of obstacles that come up, right? So it doesn't matter if you have a goal of 6 people or 16 or 5,000 or just break even to 20,000. It's like, if you're not ready for it yet, you're going to have zero. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And in terms of the financial process. So do you, outside of kind of asking the people what's their comfortable amount to put on upfront, is there a budget that you create together, and kind of how does that process work? Is it in the beginning or once you know kind of like more of the idea?
Yeah, we sit down and pretty much the very first call. I mean, it again depends on where they are. So if it's just an idea, well, then we'll do like a whole envisioning session where we're brainstorming the location and the experience that they want to create. But if we already have that, they already come to me and they have that clear, then we get the numbers in a spreadsheet. So we basically look at, okay, how much does it cost at this one property, right, per person? What are all of your expenses? Do you have to fly there? Are you going to have to pay for your room? Because some retreats, they do cover the retreat leader and some they don't. Some they do if you get X amount of people and then it's free. So we look at all of the expenses. Are you staying there an extra day? Do you want that covered? Are you staying an extra night? So we look at everything there. Are you bringing another facilitator? Do you want to give gifts? What other excursions are you offering if they're not included in that package per person from the property? So we look at everything there. And then once we have that and we have this number, I'll say, okay, now what feels good in your body to charge? How much do you want to make, right? Because we go back to that, how much do you want to make? And then we break it down by, okay, if we realistically had X amount of people and they have to figure that out for themselves, this would be the number that you would make per person. And then how does that feel? So I kind of keep asking them, how does that feel each time? Even though we're looking at spreadsheet and numbers, we have to check in because there's a lot of wobbling there. There's wobbling there. We have to get it to a point where we're not wobbling anymore, right? And feel really good about it. Because then if people come and you just said, like, there's so many retreats, luxury retreats, budget retreats, everywhere in between. And if you are just, it doesn't matter what your people want, but if they're questioning you, why is it so cheap or why is it so expensive? You have to be grounded in it and be like, this is the experience I'm creating for you, right? I wanted to bring these other guest facilitators in, or I wanted it to be a luxury accommodations. You have to be really passionate about how you're, selling it to a certain extent. And if you're wobbly, they're going to feel that wobbly energy.
Right. And you probably also need to know your clients, right? Just be realistic about just understanding the demographics that you're working with, because you personally might be into this amazing, luxurious, exotic experiences. But if most of your clients are just come with abundance issues, right? And anxieties.
Right. We're not taking them to a 5-star hotel if they have abundance issues and they have to pay, $10,000. I've seen that been done and I don't necessarily, that's not something that I'm aligned with. But yes, that's such a good point because I had that situation where I would also, this is another question I ask, or who are your people, right? We have to know who your client is and what is their demographic. And I have a whole sheet where they journal about their ideal client. So they get into what they do, how they spend their money, how they spend their time, how they, experience their free time and everything like that. So we go into the psychographics and the demographics of it too, because if they're just like that, if you're saying, oh, I have people who have abundance issues, but I want to start attracting people who are ready to invest in themselves. Well, it's like, but you don't have those people right now. So we need to work with who you are serving already, right? And do you want to continue to serve them, right? So we do have to make sure that who you are serving right now and also where you want to go, does that align with the opportunity that you're giving them in this retreat for sure?
Yeah, and that brings me to my next question do you see practitioners kind of attracting new clients through retreats, or is it mostly that they're relying on existing client base? In other words, is there an opportunity maybe to use a retreat to advertise it to a new audience, an opportunity to kind of expand or maybe take a leap into even, new niche potentially? Or do you really recommend to kind of minimize that risk and really rely on your existing audience? So this is what you're seeing.
That's an interesting question because I feel I'm in that category of shifting. because, I was working with the modality of yoga, then I shifted into my somatic work. And now I'm really lighting up with working with leaders and supporting them, not just retreat leaders, but leaders in general. So I'm in that category that you're speaking to.
Love it.
And I think it really, again, it depends on the person, how much risk they're willing to take, right? If they already have a following and people are ready and willing to like join with them, but they're like, but I don't want to teach those people anymore. Well, you're going to take a risk because you might be walking alone for a little bit, right? Until you find your new tribe. And so I would just kind of sit with people and do a little bit more digging in and to ask them why. Why do they feel the need to shift their niche completely? Or how could they maybe include? So there's a little bit of an overlap. So there is an expansion rather than just leaving their old tribe behind. So I would, sit with them a little bit more and have them meditate on it a little bit and just make sure they're really clear on why they're shifting if they're shifting.
And what if someone who's doing a retreat for the very first time and have no idea if their audience is even into such offering? They have a feeling that there might be something that they crave, but they don't know for sure because they've never done it before.
Yeah.
Any advice for the first timers who are willing to take the leap?
Yeah, I gave this advice to my clients the other day. If you're not quite sure, ask them. And if you don't have a mailing list, just ask the people that you think would be coming, right? Ask in your class if you offer a class, ask your friends if you don't really have it. Let's say, I have some people who had just their big spiritual awakening, things shifted. They just did their certification in sound healing and breath work. And they're like, okay, I need to offer this. And they don't have anything yet, but they know they're supposed to do retreats. I'd say, well, whoever is excited for you right now, and they've been watching your journey, just go ask them and say, hey, if I offer this retreat, would you come? It's that simple, right? And if you can get, if you have this vision of 15 people, well, let's make sure you have at least 5, right? Let's make sure you have at least a third of that before you really take the plunge, right? And we could even set up a situation if somebody wanted to do that and they didn't have that money up front, well, maybe we can get it so if there's a following that's really dedicated to them and are saying, yes, wherever you go, I'm going to be there. Maybe we could make an adjustment so that they're paying a deposit, right? To put down that deposit for the property. So there are lots of ways so that you're taking that risk, but feeling supported along the way.
Yeah, that's a great advice. And I love the idea of asking sometimes your clients even, or your dedicated people that have been following you for 10 years, asking them to support you on this journey. I think sometimes we're surprised how many people are willing to support us when we come with those acts of service, right?
Yeah. And to remember too that they're supporting us, but we're supporting them. And it's this reciprocal relationship. And so sometimes I see retreat leaders, they feel like, oh, I don't want to burden them. I don't want to put it out there. And they start to feel a little bit small, but it's like, no, we need you. We need you to offer what you're offering. They're craving it. They can't wait for it. And maybe they're not super like jumping up and down just yet, right? Because they haven't had that experience yet, but they're curious. They're leaning in. Like, what is this? What are you doing these days? Right. And it just to continue to be consistent and continue to put it out there and, ask the questions, get see if you can get people on board, let them refer their friends to. People really love helping people who are serving the world. So it makes them feel good too. It's part of that ripple effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give them a chance to support you.
Exactly.
Give them a chance to feel good.
Exactly.
And how far in advance do you suggest people to start planning? I know it's never too early, but is it like a year or 6 months? When should they get in touch with you? Because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be calling you or emailing you after this interview.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. It really depends on where and when. If it's more of a domesticate within the United States, I would say with it like 3 months minimum. If it's international, I say 6 months minimum, right? The longer, the better, like you said. So I usually announce 6 months before the retreat, if it's at least. Yeah. If it's a really big retreat, like I've gone to Bali 2 times and we have announced it, I think it was like 8 or 9 months before the retreat, because I knew my people would need a little bit of time to get it on their calendar, to get the money together. But some people what I'm also noticing too, is people are a lot more spontaneous now since COVID. So even though I'm just going to give that little word of advice, even though you might be announcing it 6 months out or even 9 months out, and there might be some people that sign up, but don't take it personally. They might be signing up at the last minute. That's what I've been noticing. That's a trend that I've been noticing a lot more, is people are signing up at the last minute. So to just be really strong and like trust that they're coming.
Yeah. Trust the universe, believe in yourself, right? And contact Phoebe for help.
Yes. Oh, I'm constantly giving, constantly giving the words of advice to my clients, like, it's okay, we got this. Yeah. And then the next day they're all happy and they have their breakthroughs because they have their people sign up.
Amazing. And if someone wanted to work with you, what is the best way to reach out? Or is there a kind of a session that you do together first to define who is the best fit for you, or how would you like people to reach out?
Yeah, so I'll give you the link, the direct link. So I do have a 30-minute envisioning session call. It's free, where we get to sit and I get to hear what your vision is. And I will offer what I feel I could support, because I do have lots of different ways. Like I said, it could just be a mentorship. They just want to learn on their own and they want to go and do the thing. So I kind of give them that resource. Or if they really want me to handle the logistics, then I'll say, okay, this is how we're going to handle it. So I really just in that first call is I just listen to what their vision is. And then I offer a couple of ways that I might be able to support them, and if it is a good fit. In terms of who is my ideal client these days, I mean, it really is the people that are working with you. They're healers. They're passionate about why they're serving our world, right? During this beautiful spiritual awakening we're all going through right now. So they do have the gifts. They might not necessarily know how yet. They might feel like the fears and the doubts still there, but they just know that what they have is bigger than that, and they have to move through it. And so I can help them move through it and mentor them through that. So if you're out there and you're like, oh, a retreat is a kind of a good idea, but I'm not sure, I can definitely work with you on that. That's actually where I find a lot of joy, because I get to watch their transformation. Yeah. It's a lot of fun when people are like, oh, I already know what my retreat is. I just handle the logistics. That's great and all. But I also want to be a part of that transformation for them too. Because it feels like I'm still in that role of helping people, guide them through that.
I love that so much. Well, I'm going to be reaching out because I have a vision for a Helist retreat.
Oh my gosh,
and that's in the works.
Yes. So
yes,
good.
Yes. So I'm going to be booking the session right after this call. And I hope many of our listeners will follow. This was so insightful. I personally learned so much. It's incredible. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And any last words of advice or inspiration for our listeners?
Well, I just got a bunch of chills when you were speaking. So first of all, thank you for that. Just having me here is just such a joy. And I really believe that whoever's listening here today is here for a reason. You have a unique role in this world. And whether it is to lead a retreat or not, you just have to continue to show up and be consistent and live that why. That is what I always talk about with my clients, is like, just be aligned with your why. Let it be your heartbeat, and all the hows and the whats will fall into place for you. Just trust that.
Amazing. Thank you, Phoebe, again so much. Such a pleasure.
Thank you, Yuli. Thank you. Such a joy.